So I took a headshot today for work. I did it at home for an award that I'm receiving, or an award package, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, just kind of a little behind the scenes that my flag is, follow me, clipped to my drop ceiling in my office. No problem. I don't have on a tie. My shirt's not even buttoned all the way. I have on a yellow t-shirt that I had on already. My cuffs aren't even buttoned because you're not going to see them. Let's see if I can get the camera to pan down to see my pajama pants. I'm doing this at home. I'll show you before test photos, and I'll show you the resulting photos, and ultimately the one that I chose to use, plus a couple of pictures of my behind the scenes. So I'm using my Sony A6000 camera. I forget the number. I have a prime lens, a 1.8/50. Honestly, I don't remember what that's for. I bought it to do portraits, and ta-da, I'm using it for portraits. I mounted my camera on a ball head swivel so I could orient the head in a vertical orientation, long way, so that my head's at the top and you can see, a fair amount of my torso. I have a fancy lighting rig. These are clamp lights that I got from Lowe's. This one, I put a Lowe's bag over it, ironically, as a diffuser so that the light wasn't quite as bright. This one is the same clip lamp with some funky LED lights that I got at a bargain discount place called Ollie's, and you can find them everywhere. And it's a little difficult to see, but there is parchment paper wrapped around and clipped to two of those arms, again as diffusers. I was testing that out at a previous iteration. I have my flag, as I mentioned, clipped to the ceiling. You can see that it's hanging against the walls are semi-gloss. And I've just picked a blank space on the wall that's large enough that I could stand in front of it without too many distractions. So with this first picture, I was testing the lighting. You can tell that I am not really dressed for a photo. And I had one light to my right, which is your left, which was above me, and I had another light further away to the right, I believe it for this one, and there was too much shadow, too much glare. With this one, I moved the light from the top to the bottom, and now I look like I should belong in a horror movie, and days have changed as well. Here I've actually added a third light. I moved the light back up to the top. The light that you saw with the bag over it is now low in front of me to get rid of some of the shadows, and then I have a third light which is off to my left, your right, for ambient light against the wall and the flag. This one's the day of, and so this is the test with the dress shirt to see how the colors would show up against the white. I tried this blazer and was not a huge fan. Still have a shadow on my left side. I changed blazers to something a little more peppy. The other one was a little too kind of muddy. This is distinctly blue. And this is ultimately the picture that I went with. My orientation, I'm standing about 3 feet from the wall. That's why the flag is out of focus. The prime lens then focuses on me to create what's called a bokeh effect, so that the background is out of focus. You don't really pick up that the wall is semi-gloss at this point, and I'm crisp and in focus. And you can do this with a cell phone too. I would have, but I would have had to have been behind the cell phone doing this. I did this with my camera and a remote. This is ultimately the end photo that I used. So I used Photoshop to remove the scratch from my forehead and to lessen the bags under my eyes. For some reason, I just looked exhausted and swollen or something, and the shadows weren't helping any. I also softened the shadows around my muzzle, around the nasal lines as they protrude out from your nose to my chubby cheeks, and then the lines from the corners of my mouth. And I did brighten my smile up a bit because it just looked rather dark. So as you can see behind me, this is my set. There's the camera. I've got one light here. The one light's on back there, and then the other light I've got turned off is right there on the tripod. You don't have to do anything overly fancy. Sorry, I was looking at my screen so I could point to it. You don't have to do anything overly fancy. Most of the cell phones today have great cameras on them. This is an Android, and I'm shooting on an Android, and it takes great pictures. I do all sorts of photos. I do landscapes, I do macro, I do portraits of a sort. The iPhones, 15s, 14s are great, have great cameras. The Titanium Pro, whatever they're called, are great. I've seen people take pictures, headshots like this, using their smartphones, iPhones, and as long as you've got somebody holding the camera for you and to push the button or to push the focus, and so what you can do is you can touch the screen on the Android phone to pick a subject, and then it will focus on that subject versus all of the background. And some of them probably have modes. I cheated. Like I said, I can't remember the model of the frame of my camera. It's a A6000 or something. And then the lens, it's a fancy lens, but I bought it I know it has one job and that's what I use it for. But the camera also has a mode on it that is for portraits. And guess what? I use portraits. I didn't do any fancy settings for any of that fun stuff. Now, I did kind of cheat, and I did raw pictures and JPEG, and then I worked with the raw pictures in Photoshop. And using Photoshop is a little bit of a cheat, but if you've got Windows, you can pull up something. I don't want to encourage you to use Paint, but you could use the Photos app to do some adjustment of color if you need to, and to crop it down. I still use those tools all the time, even though I've got Photoshop and Illustrator and whatever else came with that suite many years ago. So this was my experience to get to the picture there at the end to use for my fancy award at work, and do some fun stuff with your backgrounds. I consider myself a patriotic person, so I like the flag. Oh, and this is a flag that we typically hang outside, and so it being out of focus was intentional. It is, I'm not being disrespectful. I love my flag, but it is not in great shape. I did not let it touch the floor, but it's got a couple of picks. It's a little dirty from being outside, but you know what? That's my flag, and that's my flag. That's my flag, and I respect that flag. I'll fight you for it. But that's one of the reasons that it's out of focus, to take away from any of the detriments, any of the little threads that could have been hanging off of it. I did try to position it a little bit so that it didn't look, that those weren't obvious. But have fun with it. If you don't have fancy studio lights, go outside. The sun is a great source. Just be concerned about shadows. I have a selfie that I took several years ago, and I just, held the phone up high and looked into the camera sullenly. Raise your chin up a bit to get rid of that. Smile, and take the picture that way. Or whoever's taking the picture for you, if you don't want to do a selfie, just have them, take a step or two up, or sit in a chair. Do it outside. Be outside, even though it's cool. It's winter. It's almost Christmas. Thanks. Bye. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
Too many hobbies, not enough time.
It's a theme song, y'all.